Okay. So me and Austin just read Berserk up to from where we last read up to they just fight Zod for the first time, and it goes like full Berserk mode. It's awesome and whatnot. Uh, so it starts off with like it's telling the background story of Berserk and how he was born, and how he's like there's this giant like cool like murder tree, and they kill all these people like probably from a village, and they hang everyone from this.
Gotta have a murder
What?
because you gotta have a murder tree in your place.
Yeah, a cool murder tree, and they hang everyone from this. It's assumed that like mercenaries or someone raiders destroyed a village, and they hung all the bodies from this tree. And another mercenary group of Gambinos was Berserk's first mercenary group. They go over to here, and this girl, she sees a baby on the floor from a pregnant woman. The umbilical cord is still connected, and there's this baby in the mud dead. And she goes in there, she picks up the baby, and she's like, "Oh, this is my baby now. I'm gonna feed it and whatnot." And everyone's like, "Hey, Gambino, you know your wife or your girlfriend or whatever? She's like insane, and she's like talking to dead babies." And he's like, "Yeah, let her. Like, I don't care. She's talking at least." And then the baby starts crying, and the baby's alive, and that turns out to be Guts. So it's a pretty hardcore, just start of at the beginning of the chapters, and whatnot. And then it goes on to like talk about how she's like dying from like a plague, and it's assumed that the plague is from the giant murder tree and all the dead bodies. Gambino hates her Guts for her dying because of this, and Guts is like what do you call it? He's like the only one who's like sees her when she dies in like the medical tents and whatnot. Everyone else like wouldn't even look at her, but he would go in there and like it doesn't even matter. Like, he might get the plague, he still does it.
Yeah, you don't want to get the coronavirus.
It's a little worse. Then after that, it just goes into the background story about like Guts' horrible time in his mercenary group, and like I don't remember, like I don't know. It's a horrible time. Gambino's a jerk. Oh, go ahead.
So Gambino at that point kind of takes him under his wing as like the sparring partner, so you can get like good at fighting, because at some point they're gonna figure out that this kid's just eating and not doing anything. And so, Gambino is pretty much is the most toughest dad you can work with. He like hurts him like every freaking day with a sword, and so much so he actually cuts through the bone of his like nose, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he goes through his first battle. He does a good job, doesn't die, and then I guess one of Gambino's comrades, Donovan, like Harvey Weinstein's Guts for a night.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Guts is fucking devastated. He's like, "I'm gonna kill Gambino," and Gambino's like, "Oh, whatever. I don't know what you're talking about. Just make me my food." And of course, Guts is like, "Oh, maybe he didn't know." And so, like the next battle, Guts kills Donovan, and pretty much tells him, it wasn't Gambino, it was you piece of shit. And so, fast forward a few years, where I guess Gambino gets hurt and loses a leg, and is no longer able to fight, but Guts is still taking care of him. And of course, Guts being Guts, he's pretty much a fucking badass and kills like the generals and captains, so he gets like the bigger awards. Of course, Gambino looks at that and says, like, "You fucking asshole," because of course he's no longer the prom king anymore. It's Guts, and he's now like trying to beat him and treat him like shit. And so one night, I guess he tries to kill Guts, and Guts, I think, like based on what the story's telling, it was kind of a reflex.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't like him actually trying to hurt Gambino. It was just kind of like, "Oh, I don't want to die," so he kills Gambino. Everyone like says like, "What's going on?" There's a tent on fire, and they figure out that Guts killed Gambino, and they all try to kill Guts because Guts
is kind of
really
weird because like
to explain himself.
No one like cares that like Gambino's been abusing him for like all these years and like beating him up and cutting him. But it's like the one night that Gambino gets all super drunk and goes around like beating up people in his mercenary group, and then goes to killed Guts, everyone's like, whoa, this kid's a jerk.
He killed my favorite asshole.
Yeah, and it's not like Gambino was doing anything at this time. He was just sitting on like the top of the hill, like talking trash to everyone, like getting free meals. He wasn't like fighting in the mercenary group or anything like that.
Yeah, and so Guts, of course, runs away, but doesn't get unscathed because he does get I think he gets an arrow on his back or a few, doesn't he?
They chase him down, they shoot him, and they think they kill him because they shoot him and he falls off his horse like down the hill, and then he wakes up and he's like, "Oh man, my life sucks," and there's like 15 wolves around him. He's like, "Oh yeah, it still sucks."
And of course, it happens the same thing again, where he's ready to die, and then he gets a reflex, kills the first wolf, and he's just like, I'm not going to die. And it kind of fast forwards about, I believe, 4 years into the future, where he's just a mercenary about to fight this stronghold, and you don't really see Guts until like this big, I don't know if it was a captain or a colonel or whatever, but this big boy was fucking murdering everyone, and then he's just like, what did you get to do? And then Guts comes out and is like, all right, I get to kill him if I get a reward for it. Of course he does, and pretty much just takes his whole metal helmet in half as well as his head. And while this is all going down, there's this group called the Band of the Hawk, which you don't know yet, but this is the group that he's going to be with.
They're the good guys.
And we were kind of looking at Guts and say, this guy's pretty fucking strong. And so we might have to recruit him later. And Griffith doesn't. It kind of just shrugs him off. He's like, yeah, maybe, whatever. And it cuts to Guts, getting a reward, saying, I don't want to be a knight or whatever. Just give me the money, and he leaves. And then this is where we get to where I most hated character, I think, in the series, called Donovan.
Yeah.
Or not.
It's not Donovan.
Corcus.
Corcus, yeah. I was going to ask what his name was, too, because I was like, man, what's that guy? That guy's an asshole. He's so fucking annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just like, I could kill Guts, no problem. I'm like, what?
Yeah, the whole thing after that is like they see Guts and they're like, hey, he probably has tons of money now because he killed that big knight, and they paid him off because Guts is just a wandering mercenary now. And Corcus is like, hey, let's go kill him and take his money. And then Griffith, or then Casca's like, no, don't do that. He's going to kill you. And he's like, well, I'm going to do it anyways. And Griffith's like, yeah, well, whatever. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, Casca is like the second lieutenant to Griffith. And so they do it. It's like, come on, let's say Donovan.
Donovan is revived.
Donovan's the Harvey Weinstein of the, or not technically Epstein. Well, it's Epstein.
He's not rich.
He's not rich. That's true. Yeah. Never mind. He's just a creep.
He's just creepy. And but anyway, he's like a big brute too, and he has like a lazy eye. It's not really a lazy eye.
Yeah,
one of his eyes like permanently jutted out.
He's just like, I like me some little. He's a Catholic priest. Over that. Catholic priest. And so at this point, they're fighting Guts, and Guts is beating the shit out of all these guys.
He kills one of them too.
He kills a few of them. I don't know if he just kills just one.
I think he kills one. He kills one and he chops off the arm of another, or he kills two.
I mean, cutting an arm off during the Middle Ages is pretty much kill the guy.
Not if it's Zodd.
That's true. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. For the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, so Casca is told to come in, and she has a little more of a strategy when it comes to fighting Guts, but even Casca can't really fight him. She gets cut off her horse and pretty much is about to die, and then Griffith comes in. And the thing is, Guts is brute strength. Griffith is more of a strategy and quickness. So he pretty much beats Guts pretty quickly. And although Guts kind of tries to get back up and say, you can't kill me, another slice, and Guts goes down for the count. And of course, the next day, Guts is revived in the camp and is told to see
the coolest part in the fight when they're fighting, and then Guts swings his sword, and then Griffith jumps on top of the sword, and then he puts his
no. That's the next part, isn't it?
No, this is the same part because he beats up Casca too, and then Griffith has to save her. When? Oh,
no, that's the second.
You are right. You are right. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about Donovan again.
God, you don't even read Berserk, bro. God, you're not even a fan.
Let's see what was
So he gets
wrong.
revived. It was told, "Hey, you gotta be with the Band of the Hawk, which is run by Griffith, the guy who slashed Guts." He's like, "No, I'm not gonna fucking do that. You guys are a bunch of wimps. He doesn't want to be with anyone." And of course, Griffith says, "No. So we're gonna do a duel. If I beat you, you get to be part of the Band of the Hawk, and you get to be mine." Which is kind of gay. How he words
He says
it.
it really weird. And even
Yeah,
Guts is
Guts
like,
kind of just like this guy's pretty fucking gay.
Guts, like, first he's like, you're not a homo, are you? And that's like an
Yeah,
actual
just
line
a
in the
homo.
book.
Right? You forgot to say no homo. And of course, and so he fights Griffith, and this time, like Guts, like bites on the sword to try to like stop him from like getting any further, and he can't like. Griffith's starting to go through his paces because he's actually starting to actually work to kill this guy.
Yeah, because
And then
Griffith like, is in like a checkmate almost position where like, he's standing on the sword and he has his rapier like up to Guts' face and he's like, oh, well, I win now, you lose, you have to join the group. And then Guts bites the sword and he's like, screw you, and then he throws him over and then they start fighting fist to fist. And during this time, Cork is on the sidelines with a bow and arrow or a crossbow. He's like, I'm going to shoot him during the middle of the fight, and
Cass has to call it dickhead for now on.
Yeah, Cass has to keep like threatening to like stab Corcus to not interfere with the fight because Griffith said no interfering.
Yeah, and so this goes back for a while, but ultimately, you know, Guts loses and has to yield and says, "All right, fine." And I think. And it doesn't show too many battles, but it does show one where he is like the lead back guy. So anyone who comes into the rear has to like guard the rear. And of course, he almost dies doing this. But when he's about to kind of because he kind of like takes the bull and gets all these guys to follow him, Griffith notices that Guts is gone and comes back and saves Guts because he's fighting a bunch of other dudes, and of course he saved. Kind of a party afterwards of kind of celebrating we got another mission done, and that's
okay. Okay, we're good. Oh, we're back. We had a little break. All right, go ahead, Fred.
So he meets the three kind of main characters: Judo, Ricket, and Pippin. Pippin's kind of a big muscular guy. Ricket, I don't know exactly what he does other than throughout the story so far. He's kind of like the medic, I guess, or the young kid cheerleader. And then Judo's kind of the quick assassin who throws knives, kind of knows a bunch of people in different cities. And then it goes to our last battle, which I don't know if it ever says anything. Do you know what the fort's called? Where they meet Zodd at, or no?
No, I don't remember what it's called.
Okay. So they go into the fort, and Griffith and the rest of the Band of the Hawk is kind of the reserved army, which is kind of hanging back, and the Raiders, which is what Guts has been in charge of, which is called the Captain of the Raiders, who is trying to go into the more inner area of the fort, and is told not to because he's lost like 100 men at this point, or 50 men.
I think it's 50
He
men.
kind of doesn't know.
And
yeah,
he's
kind of wondering.
has been promoted. He's no longer just
He's been promoted. It's been since he's been in the Hawk, kind of moves it up through the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to go into this fort because he's like, why are all my guys dying in this one area? What's the traps? And so he goes in there, and this is probably the best artwork I've seen so far.
Yeah, I was going to say this too. During the Zodd fight, it's some insane artwork.
Yeah, because it's it's all black and white, but it's just you can see the dead bodies, the heads stacked up, and that's where you meet one of the main characters and probably the Jesus guy of the group.
One of the main cool dudes of the entire series.
Yeah, the guy, and you get a little bit more to know him back and forth throughout the series, but right now he is a muscular guy who has the face, I'd say, of I don't know. I couldn't tell you, I guess. But, yeah, monster. There you go.
A little before this, Ricketts with Griffith and the rest of the troop, and they're like talking about like the city that they're taking, and what's it called? They're like, oh, what's his name? Rickett. He says he's like, hey, did you hear that there's a zodd dude? And they're like, no, who's that? That guy's a myth. And they're like, oh, he's this dude who's supposed to have lived like hundreds of years and he's killed thousands of people on the battlefield. And they're like, oh no, that guy's fake. That guy's just like a myth. He's not real. And they're like, well, they say that they just hired him, that he's where Guts is. So they foreshadow him a little bit, like right before this. But
did they hire him, or he just goes into the thick of battle?
No, they it specifically says that they just hired him. They say he joined the ranks of the enemy. So I'm assuming they hired him. He's supposed to be a mercenary.
I thought that was funny though. It's just like, would you like to hear some exposition about Zodd?
What's going to happen?
And so Guts finally finds Zodd and fights him, and he is like struggling to even try to get a hit in. Like he's like blocking everything. Mm-hmm. And to Zodd's kind of understanding is like, wow, you're actually still alive. Good job. Because he's like such an overpowered beast. He's just like, yeah, wow, you're actually alive. Wow, good job. And so Guts finds this as a good opportunity to hit Zodd or try to kill him. And Zodd kind of thinks he's got to go for a different move, which is like try to think that his sword's longer, so he's got to hit him quicker. And Zodd's just like, if you're going to fight, at least you're going to die, and at least you're going to die fighting, and that's somewhat to be noteworthy. So Zodd accepts, strikes the same time that Guts does, and instead of what Zodd was trying to do, thought he was going to do, Guts goes right for his sword, cuts it in half, and then hits him and gets him right in, I believe, the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And in which case, Guts is like, yeah, I got him. And then Zodd's like, oh, you actually got me. Good job, buddy. And then he just turns into this giant, like, bull fucking monster.
Yeah, he turns into
like, all right, Minotaur. The Minotaur, there you go. And he's just like, all right, we're getting somewhere with this. And then Guts is like, oh, fuck. And then fucking gets thrown around like a fucking ragdoll and is about to die because, Zodd's pretty much overpowering him at this point, and Guts is just like, what the fuck's going on? He's about to tear him in two, and then Griffith, who noticed that Guts was taking too long and kind of came in saying, what's going on, and started to shoot arrows at Zodd. And Zodd's pretty pissed because he's like, hey, I was about to fight, like, this guy who actually is a fighter, you can't intervene. And so he starts murdering everyone. And Griffith comes in, I don't know if he cuts the arm, but he like uses his like anger as a diversion to try to get Guts. In which case, Zodd takes notice and says, all right, you're both going to die now. And of course, Guts uses this, they both split up in two different directions. Mm-hmm. And they both, I think, Griffith cuts off the arm of Zodd.
Yeah, Griffith cuts off his right arm, and Guts just like cuts him a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, cuts him a little bit. I don't think he really does much. Mm-hmm. And of course, like Zodd's is like, all right, we got two to the party now.
Yeah,
and then starts beating the shit out of both of them with his severed arm.
Well, he tail whips Griffith, and he flings him like 20 feet into the wall, and Griffith's just like KO'd from like that one hit. And then he turns to Guts, and Zodd is holding his decapitated arm now, and he's like swinging it and beating up Guts with it. And then he just like puts it back on his arm and it like melts back into his body.
Yeah, like the steam like goes off it, so it looks like it's just branding it back into the arm.
Yeah, and then he's going to. Oh, go ahead. You want to go ahead?
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say he's about to kill Guts and everyone, but then when he walks up to Griffith, he sees that he has the egg of the Crimson King or whatever, which is like the special version of the egg that like makes you become the god.
Which in the story he does talk about a little bit. We did when it was like after the celebration. He talks about
I bought this from
his
a
necklace.
He
got it from a traveling trader or something like that. He really thought it was weird, but it isn't. But he just he just thought, hey, this is the egg of the king, because he knows what it's called. But he just thought, oh, I want to be king. So at that point, Zodd knows what that is and what the relation to it is,
because he's
so
an apostle,
instead of like killing him, he's an apostle like the Slug Man, but it's not as grotesque. He's actually a very
cool
normal monster as opposed to like a giant oozing beast. And so he talks to. So before he leaves, because he busts through the ceiling and is about to leave, and then tells Guts, if you're a friend of this guy, just know that when his ambitions go up in smoke and he has nothing left, you're gonna fucking die. And everyone you know is gonna die. And he just fucking fucks off right after that. And that's like where we ended it right there. But that was probably one of the best monsters in the series, and like an ongoing character who kind of, he does seem to, and you'll see this more in the story, but he is not really like a follower of the God King. He just does the bare minimum. He's there to kill people and fight. That's about it.
He just wants the cool fights and whatnot.
He's not really for like eating people, and he's just there to, because he does leave the dead bodies everywhere. He doesn't like consume them like the other apostles we've seen before. So, but that's the next one.
I think I just want to point out that I thought it was a little weird is when they cut off his arm and then he puts the arm back and it just heals. But later on, a lot later on, I believe. I don't remember who it was, if it was Gus or Griffith. I believe it's Griffith. But he cuts off his horn. And he only has one horn now. And he only has one horn for the rest of the series. Why doesn't he just kill back his horn?
I don't know if that was the Skull Knight.
It was the Skull Knight?
I can't remember exactly, but I think the Skull Knight fights, because Zodd actually has a beef with him.
Yeah.
Too, and I think he fights because I think he has a special type of sword too that makes like healing harder to do, or if not impossible. So I think that Skull Knight does it, but I could be wrong.
Okay, all right, but I thought this was a very good 2 chapters or 2 volumes.
The only thing I give like kind of weird credit, I don't give credit for, is the Guts upbringing story. I understand that he really likes, like, Gambino's the father, and I think her name's Sis is the mother, and it really doesn't go into detail about the mother at all, other than she took care of him for about 3 years before she died.
Yeah, she's kind of crazy,
and that was kind of it. Yeah, I thought that was a little odd, but oh, and by the way, it's not the Gambino band. It's the guy who's leading is called Gambino. I don't even know what the band is called.
I don't know what they're called.
That Gambino part of.
But
other than that, it's a good story so far, and it really shows Guts. And this is throughout the whole series. Everyone gets Catholic churched in this whole series.
Yeah.
So this is how dark this storyline is.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say like these 2 volumes, I'd say it's still sitting around like a 8.5 or a 9 for me.
I'd say 7.5 to 8. It really gets a lot better. It's just showing a lot of darkness, and I think it really picks up a lot more steam when this coming up chapters, where it shows a lot more character development with like a lot of the new characters that you just found out about, as well as kind of the betrayal that goes in with it. But for right now, this is a good chapter just to kind of show that this is the universe you live in. This is the universe that Guts has lived throughout his entire life, and this is kind of how aggressive and angry he is, because war is kind of like you have to be working the entire time just to keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
So,
okay, cool.
All right.